Loving all beings. Love all beings, for we all live under the same sky and are supported by the same earth. While we're all different, each of us has basic wishes. All living beings, humans and animals, want to be safe. We humans want to be happy, to be with those we like and who care about us. We want to be treated kindly and with respect. Animals also want to be safe and not be harmed, and many want to be loved. How do we get these good things we all wish for? By giving them to others. If we want to be happy and safe, respected, and cared for, we need to help others have these also. All others. We can help other people and animals be happy and safe by treating them as we wish to be treated. We can sit next to the girl on a bus that no one ever sits next to and begin a conversation. We can take care to watch where we walk and not step on any insects. What about things that grow and things that are not alive? We should respect and care for them as well. We could help water the plants when the weather is hot. We can straighten our books so our bookcase is nicely organized. Looking around, we will find many ways to show our love for the people, animals, plants, and things that share our planet with us. A person of good character is highly respected. Respect is not based on external appearances. A capable person will naturally have a good reputation. People are not won over by boasting or self-praise. All too often, we judge people by how they look. Anyone who has ever gone to a movie because of a great trailer but found the movie boring will understand the problem with judging based on appearances. Appearances can be very deceptive, especially with people. It is character, a person's good qualities, that really matters. We need to remember this when choosing our friends so we can choose them wisely. Good friends are people we respect and like because they're always there for us and we trust them. Most likely, our best friend isn't the best dressed person in our class and or the star of the soccer team. But this doesn't matter because they have character, they care about others, and we respect them for this. In time, such capable people will be trusted and appreciated by others as well. Why? Because she is someone others can depend on, and he is someone who becomes good at what he does because he studies and works hard. They will be happy to help others. They do not need to brag or show off to impress others. Others will know their worth from how they speak and what they do. Hopefully, this is the kind of person we too will become in time. If we are good at something, we should be willing to use that ability to benefit others. When we feel others are more competent than us, we should not criticize or slander them for being so. Neither flatter the rich nor despise the poor. Neither ignore old friends nor take delight in only new ones. Instead of using our skills for ourselves, it would be more fun to use our abilities to benefit others. But what if it isn't us, but others who have the skills? We shouldn't be jealous or say anything bad about those people. Instead, we should compliment them. When we praise others, it should be based on their abilities. We shouldn't praise or flatter people just because they have a lot. Neither should we look down on those who have little. Also, we should not ignore our old friends in favor of new ones. This was an important lesson that Jack learned in Old Friends, New Friends. Jack and Ryan had been best friends for as long as they could remember. They were always together. In fact, their parents joked that they might as well move into one or the other's house since they spend so much time together. One day at school, a new boy named Owen was brought to class and given the desk next to Jack. After class, Jack introduced him to Ryan. When Ryan went to the library, Owen told Jack that he had seen him on the playground and that Jack was great at sports. Owen praised Jack so much that when Owen asked Jack to be his partner in the games that weekend, Jack agreed without thinking. Jack's head was swimming with Owen's praise until he saw Ryan coming down the hallway from the library. Then he remembered that he and Ryan always played in the games together. Not knowing what to do, Jack said the first thing that came to his mind. He told Ryan that their teacher had asked him to help Owen feel welcome and to partner him in the games. Ryan was hurt but didn't want to make Jack feel bad, so he said okay. He then turned to walk home alone. Jack was about to go after him when Owen came up and started saying how great Jack would be at the games. With all the praise from his new friend, Jack forgot all about Ryan. That Saturday, Owen and Jack were in the rope climbing contest. Jack had never been very good at this, but Ryan never minded. During the contest, one team of climbers competed with another team. Owen was much better than Jack, but even so, they lost to the other team. Owen said no problem, that he was going for some water. When he didn't come back, Jack went to look for him. He saw Owen talking to another boy and was coming up behind them to apologize to Owen when he heard him say, "I figured if I asked that klutz Jack to be my partner, I could always blame him if we lost. Pretty smart, huh?" And both boys burst out laughing. Jack froze. This was who he had dropped his best friend for. Ryan had never called him a klutz. Ryan would never call anyone a klutz. Miserable, Jack turned to leave when he saw Ryan coming toward him. At first, Jack didn't know what to say. Then he knew he had to tell the truth. After admitting that the teacher had not asked him to play with Owen, Jack stopped talking. He was terrified that Ryan would never forgive him and he'd have lost his best friend. Ryan looked at him and was silent. Then he smiled and said, "Forget Owen. Let's go play ball." Do not ignore old friends in favor of new ones. When others are busy, do not bother them. When they are troubled, do not make things worse by talking unnecessarily. We should neither expose the shortcomings of others nor disclose their private matters. We usually get so caught up in what we want to say that we don't question whether it is a good time to talk. We just talk away and get frustrated when mom or our friend doesn't pay attention to us. Even worse, the other person ends up being annoyed at the interruption. Or we may chatter away without realizing that our friend is troubled about something. So instead of listening to him and showing how we care, we are focusing on ourselves and maybe even making things worse for him. What can we do instead? Before we talk to someone, we can first ask if it is a good time to talk, or we can look and see if she is busy or seems to be deep in thought. If we do begin to talk and she isn't paying attention, it is probably not a good time to interrupt her. What do we do if someone tells us something personal, or if we alone know a fault the person has? We shouldn't gossip about the shortcomings of others or discuss their personal matters. What we know is private and should remain so. By not gossiping, we show respect for others and will be respected in return. It is good to praise the virtuous actions of others. Knowing that they are being praised, people will be encouraged to do better. Gossiping about the wrongdoings of others is in itself wrong. When we slander another excessively, we too will suffer harm and great misfortune. When we praise others for their good actions and they learn of it, they will try to do even better in the future. So we both benefit. We are happy in what they have done, and they will try to do even better. What about gossiping? Gossiping about the faults of others can seem harmless. After all, the other person won't hear what we have said. At least that is what we tell ourselves. But gossiping about someone can cause much harm because other people may believe what we say and thus think badly of that person. By gossiping, we will in turn be gossiped about. Why? Because by gossiping, we'll have lost the respect of those who hear us gossip. But as bad as gossip is, slander is even worse. Gossip is when we say something that we believe to be true. Slander is when we say something that we know is not true. This will harm and cause many problems for the other person. But that is not all that will happen. When we speak ill of another, we too will be harmed and have many problems. If it seems a bother to praise others and to only speak the truth, please think again. If it's really that hard, then how did a snow child with a knit hat and a carrot nose manage it in? Harry's nose. It had been snowing for weeks, and snow families appeared all over the countryside. Mr. and Mrs. Snow Jones were very lucky, for they had two sons, Harry and Frank. Like their father, they wore blue and yellow knit hats and had carrot noses. Their mother, like her mother, wore a scarf and had a potato nose. Harry and Frank loved following their father as he walked up and down the hills. He praised his sons for joining him in greeting the neighbors. Because their father praised them for their politeness, Harry and Frank tried even harder to keep up with him, so that he'd be even prouder of them. One day, before the Snow Jones were awake, Harry felt something pulling on his nose. He opened his eyes and found himself staring into another pair of eyes, big pink ones. Then he saw a pair of gigantic floppy ears and a nose as pink as the eyes. It was a rabbit. While looking at the rabbit's nose, he realized with horror that the rabbit had its teeth sunk into his carrot nose and was tugging on it. Harry cried out. He grabbed his nose and pulled as hard as he could, but the rabbit was too strong. Before his family could come to Harry's aid, the rabbit pulled the carrot out of Harry's hands and bounded away with it. With one leap, the rabbit cleared the fence and the Snow Jones's yard and was gone. And so was Harry's nose. Harry ran over to the fence and began pounding on it, yelling for the rabbit to return his nose. Realizing his nose was probably gone forever, he sat down and began to cry. His parents tried to console him, saying they'd get him a new nose. But Harry knew that carrots were hard to find since they had all been used up by the snow people. Snow families from around the neighborhood came running to see what the commotion was. By now, Harry had stopped crying and was getting angry. He was a mean old rabbit. The neighbors agreed in sympathy. He was fat and ugly, Harry continued. A neighbor agreed. He sure was one fat rabbit. It's amazing he could even jump the fence, added another. He's a thief. Harry was really getting angry now. Can you imagine stealing a little kid's nose? Piped someone from the back of the crowd. I never did like those dumb rabbits, mumbled a snow woman near him. He should be caught and fined. We should take away all his carrots and see how he likes it, Harry blurted out. Feeling that things were getting a little out of hand, Mr. Snow Jones motioned for everyone to calm down. He turned to Harry. Now, son, we know how badly you feel, but the rabbit taking your nose is no reason for you to say untrue things. Mrs. Snow Jones added, we don't know all the facts. Maybe he's hungry. Maybe his brothers and sisters or his elderly parents are. We don't know why he did it, but whatever the reason, we shouldn't make up things. Then a hush fell over the crowd. An enormous carrot appeared at the top of the fence. It was held by a rope, and at the other end of the rope was a rabbit. He slowly lowered the carrot to the ground, then jumped down next to it. He dragged the carrot over to the Snow Jones, looked up at Harry's parents, and swallowed hard. I heard what you said. I didn't take the carrot for my brothers or sisters. I don't have any. I don't have any parents either. I never had anyone teach me what was wrong. But what you told Harry sounded like good advice. I ate his carrot while listening to you, so it's gone. But here's another one. It's much bigger, so maybe you can cut it down for Harry to use. Then the rabbit turned to Harry. I'm sorry I took your nose. I'm sorry I made up stories about you, replied Harry, and I'm sorry you don't have a family. Maybe you can live with us. Harry turned to his parents. Mom, Dad, his parents smiled in agreement, and for the rest of the winter, the rabbit happily had a family. Kind, truthful words build friendships. Lies destroy them. By mutually encouraging one another to do good, both of us will improve our characters. By not advising one another to correct our respective faults, our characters will diminish. When giving and receiving, we should be clear in what we are doing. It is better to give more and receive less. When we and a friend encourage each other to do what is good and help one another, we will both become better people. On the other hand, if we fail to tell a friend about her faults, both our characters will suffer. And as for giving and receiving, for that, let's check with Ethel and her egg. Everyone knows how lady dragons are about their eggs. Dedicated, protective, fierce when necessary. That spring, there was no need for ferocity, as the firegrass was plentiful. Daily, the husbands brought bundles of it for their wives, so they could all share, as was the custom. All, that is, except Ethel. Ethel had forgotten that to have food in the future, she needed to share now. So, as her husband brought grass, she hid it, and when the ladies shared their grass with her, she didn't write it down in her ledger, so she'd be sure to repay them. Ethel just put the grass in the pantry and never bothered with updating her ledger. But that was just one way that Ethel was different. When it came to protecting her egg, Ethel made the other lady dragons pale by comparison. She would hold on to her egg and never leave it. At night, she carried it into the cave and locked the door. In the morning, she carried it outside. Then she crouched in the doorway, furrowed her brow, and glowered through narrowed eyes. The other dragons became increasingly concerned. One said he'd go tell Ethel's mother what was going on. When she was told, Ethel's mom was horrified and very worried. She came running to Ethel's cave where she saw her daughter crouching. Ethel's mother took one look at her glowing daughter and burst into tears. Since she had 3 heads, when Ethel's mom burst into tears, it was really something. As one head wailed, another tearfully looked in their handbag for a handkerchief. The third looked on in fright. Ethel demanded, "Mother, what are you doing? All this noise will disturb the egg. And what are you doing here?" Ethel's mother's third head knew what she had to do. "Dear, your friends are very worried about you and your ledger. Your father and I raised you to be unselfish, and like all good dragons, to always update your ledger. Also, to always be more generous to others than they are to you. This is the only way we can hold our heads high. But I also came to see about the little one. You're being far too protective of your egg. Caring for it is one thing. When your baby hatches, he'll take one look at your expression and be too scared to leave his egg. Then I'll never get to see my grandson." And with that, her mother's third head burst into tears. Well, that got Ethel's attention. Her baby afraid of her and refusing to leave the egg. Her not being generous as she had been taught. All 3 of her mother's heads crying at once. "Mother, I'm sorry. I'll stop glowering. See? No more glower." And indeed, Ethel was beginning to smile. "Mother, I owe you big time. Now, let's find my ledger." It is always good to give more than we receive. Before we ask others to do something, we should first ask ourselves if we would do it. If not, then we should not ask others to do it. We should repay the kindness of others. We should let go of our anger, spend less time holding grudges, and more time repaying kindness. Before we ask someone else to do something, we don't like to do, we should think first. Is it something the other person likes to do, or at least doesn't mind doing? For example, we are afraid of spiders, but our friend actually likes them. In this case, we could ask her to please catch a spider and carefully release it outside. What if it is something that the other person also does not like? Let's say she doesn't like spiders either. Then we shouldn't ask her to catch that fast-moving, hairy one in our room. But what if we don't know how our friend feels about something we don't like doing? Then we shouldn't ask her to do it because it isn't kind to ask another person to do something we ourselves don't want to. She might be hurt or become upset that we expected her to do something we wouldn't do ourselves. We all know how it feels to be angry. We become terribly upset. We cannot think straight. Knowing how badly we feel when we get angry, we do not want to be the cause of someone else feeling that way. Not wanting to hurt or upset others, we don't ask them to do something unpleasant that we ourselves don't want to do. Instead, we try to always treat others with consideration. And a side benefit is that in return, we also will be treated thoughtfully. What do we do if someone did or said something to us and we get angry? That's what happened to Twill, and this is how he handled it. And Twill grows up. Twill had been looking forward to the humans' picnic for weeks. As a teenage ant, he was too young to have been to one yet, but had heard all about them from listening to the older ants. There would be so much wonderful food there, and lots of ants too. Maybe he'd even get to meet some really cute girl ants. Twill was lost in his daydream when his mother called to ask if he had finished his chores and studied for his final exam. Since he hadn't done either, he didn't answer her. He knew that if his mother found out, he would be stuck in the apartment and not get to hang out with his buddies. He decided he'd go see them now without telling his mother. There'd be plenty of time later for studying and chores. He slipped out and quietly closed the front door behind him. He had only gone a dozen steps down the tunnel when his mother opened the door and stuck her head out. "Hello, boys," she called out to Twill's friends at the end of the tunnel. Then she looked at Twill. "Twill, have you finished studying and doing your chores?" Twill was so embarrassed. Why did his mother have to treat him like a baby? He was a teenager, for Pete's sake. Twill gruffly retorted, "I'm busy now, Mom." Twill's mother stepped out into the tunnel and looked at him. Sighing, she said, "Twill, you're not going anywhere until you finish your work. Back into the apartment, now." To Twill's friends, she said, "Twill will have to join you later after he's done." Twill stormed back into the apartment and angrily began doing his chores. As he was washing the dishes, putting out food for their pet grub, and packing the food his mother had fixed for the queen, he muttered to himself about how unreasonable his mother was. Why did she always go on about school and chores? Didn't she know he had important things to do? He was almost an adult. Was she always going to treat him like a child? He was still very upset when he took out the trash. It was so unfair and embarrassing. How would he ever face his friends again? He sat down on the ground, propped his elbows on a piece of wood and his chin on his hands. Why were parents always nagging their kids? If it wasn't one thing, it was another. They never understood. Parents thought only about what they wanted their kids to do, not what their kids wanted. After some time, he heard footsteps behind him. When he turned to see who it was, he saw that it was his mother. "Son, I'm sorry you're upset. You have chores to do because you're almost an adult now, and I depend on you. And you have to study hard because a good final grade will get you that job you want." Twill, meeting our responsibilities is something we all need to do, and meeting them happily, or at least not unhappily, she said as she smiled, will make whatever we are doing more enjoyable. Now, I have to get this seed inside. I came out here to find one because you're going to need it for your final exam. After the picnic, when the other students start looking for them, they'll be hard to find. I'll go now and put it in your room for you. Twill watched his mother turn to leave. Now he felt terrible. Here he had been angry and complaining about her when, as usual, she had been thinking of helping him. Not sure how to apologize, he called to her, "Mom?" She turned around to look at him. Looking down at his feet, he said, "Thank you." Then he looked up at her. "I really mean it, and I'm sorry." The smile on her face could only come from a mother. He got up and ran over to the door. He opened it for her and then helped her carry the seat back to his room. It is better to remember the kindness of others than to hold on to our anger. When we interact with people who serve us, we should act in ways that inspire respect. And while being dignified and proper, it is important. It is also important to be kind and generous. If we force others to do as we wish, they will silently rebel. But if we convince them with good, sound reasoning, they will happily agree without complaining. In some places, it is common to have a maid or perhaps a gardener working for a family. Elsewhere, this is more unusual. But even if our family does not have someone working just for us, we still have many people who serve or help us in some way. The person may cook or bring us our food at a restaurant. She may deliver our mail, fix the plumbing, or wash our car. He may check our groceries in the store, mow the lawn, or clean our home. These people are all helping our family, so we should act courteously and with appreciation. If it was not for them, we would have to do everything ourselves. Thanks to the people who help and serve us, we have time to go to school, play in sports, spend time with our friends, or go camping with our family. So the next time someone brings us our food at a restaurant or delivers something to our home, we should smile and say thank you and mean it. How else can we act toward those who help our family? When we need a person to do something for us, we can explain why we are making the request. For example, instead of telling the delivery person to put the box inside the door, we could ask, "Could you please put the box inside the door?" And then explain, "It's too heavy for me to carry." Then we can smile and say thank you. As long as others know why we are asking them to do something, it will be much easier for them to happily do as we request. And we'll feel happy as well because we'll get the help we need by being pleasant. The way we act toward others will become the way others act toward us. Try this out. Start a list of all the people you can think of who help you or your family. For the next week, add to it every time someone new does something for your family. They may come to your home or be someone you meet when you're out with your parents. To see how much help these people are giving you, think of how much time you would need if you did everything yourself. Now, the next time you say thank you, you will mean it even more, and the other person will be even happier.